What's up, guys? Welcome back to Bible Fun to Dennis. Today we're in Job chapter 7. Let's get started.
All right, Job chapter number 7 is a sad chapter. So Jax read it just a little while ago, and he walks into the kitchen and he says, I don't know what I'm reading. I said, all right, well, what'd you get out of it? And he goes, well, it's just bad. It's all bad. And I said, well, what's bad? And he said, the whole thing. And I said, well, give me something specific. He said, it's everything. And you know what? He's not wrong. Chapter 7 is a tough chapter because Job's talking about how he feels. And so he's being really honest about what's going on, and this is raw, and he's not painting a pretty picture. He's telling you that things are not good. He compares his life to hard service. Verse 1 says, is there not a time of hard service for man on earth? And what he's talking about, like if a prisoner was convicted of a crime and they were sentenced to jail, but jail with hard labor. That's what Job's talking about. He says, I feel like I've been on trial and I've been sentenced, but I don't know when the trial happened. I don't know why I was convicted. I don't even know what the crime was, but I feel like I got convicted to hard labor. And so he talks about his view of human life, that it's hard. It's one long disappointment. It's days ending without hope, and there's not even any rest at night. When you get into verse 4, he says, when I lie down, I say, when shall I arise and the night be ended? For I've had my fill of tossing till dawn. Well, Job says, even when I go to bed at night, he says, I don't get any rest. I'm not sleeping. The only way I kind of catch that verse is there have been some nights where we've gone camping or something, and we've been outside and it's been like hot and miserable. And I just kind of would wake up in the middle of the night, like we were in our tent. I remember a Boy Scout trip we took one time. I woke up in the middle of the night and I thought, good grief, can day get here? Well, Job says every night is like that for him. And so it's not getting any better, and his days are bad and he can't wait to just close his eyes. But when he closes his eyes, he can't wait for day. He's just not happy. What'd you catch in this chapter?
Okay, so like I said earlier, chapter 7 is just a bunch of depression. And we see this especially in verses 5 and 6, where he says, my flesh is clothed with maggots and encrusted with dirt. My skin forms scabs and then oozes. My days pass more swiftly than a weaver's shuttle, and they come to an end without hope. So Job, he's completely given up. He's not only let himself go, but his own body, has also just given up its will to live, because he feels like he has nothing to live for. In 5, when it says his skin forms scabs and then oozes, that's what a dead body does in the grave. So his body's dying on the outside, but he just can't seem to die, and that's what he wants.
Yeah, it's almost like he's describing that his body is reacting to the way he feels on the inside. He said, I got nothing to live for, and if you look at me, remember the devil struck his body in chapter 2. Mm-hmm. And so now he's got sores all over him. He says, I feel like death on the inside, and if you look at me, I look like death on the outside. Job is, Job's struggling. He says in verse number 16, he says, leave me alone, for my days are but a breath. He wishes he could just fade out. He wishes it could all just be over. But in verse 20, he's asking, why have I sinned? Or have I sinned? What have I done to you, O watcher of men? And then he asks the question, why? Now, here's what we talked about. Jackson and I were talking about this a little earlier. Job is suffering. Why do his friends say that he's suffering?
Because he has this sin in his life. They
think you only get punished if you have sin. Mm-hmm. Well, what did Job lose that was of the most value to him in chapter 1?
His family.
His family. Are they alive or dead?
Dead.
So they didn't just go away, they died. And what they're saying is, Job, you've lost everything because you have sinned. And poor old Job, like maybe this is why he can't sleep at night, because he goes, my children have died. Is it my fault? Listen, now we know why he's not just sad about losing his stuff. He's considering, is it me? And what if he then feels guilty because he's been saying it's not me? And so then he goes, on one hand, if it's me, oh my goodness, that it's my fault. On the other side, he goes, but I don't think it's my fault, so am I too prideful? Like, he can't catch a break. Let me tell you what I read a little earlier today that helps me with this is I read Romans chapter number 8. Romans 8 verse 18 says this, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us." And so it's talking about heaven. And it talks about that in heaven, things are going to be so good that even our worst troubles on this earth won't even register as a blip of comparison. What that means is that in essence, we ought to calculate our view of life correctly in terms of how good heaven will be. By the way, we ought to be more excited about heaven and thinking about heaven than we are. Some people, would get the critique that they are so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. I think the opposite of that can be true. If we are enough heavenly focused, then we will see life through a lens of good, because heaven will be so good. We see that what we go through now is just temporary, but it won't even compare. And so when I read that, I think about as bad as life can get here, and it can get bad, the worse and worse and worse it gets only serves to show how much greater heaven will be. And so in this world, we will have trouble, but it is not even compared to the glory that will await later. Can I tell you this? At the end of the book of Job, just remember, he will be vindicated and God will restore him and bless him, and he will know God in a way that he did not know previously. But even for us, one day God will make all things right, and one day the glory that we get in heaven, the wonder, the beauty, the peace, the everything, we'll look back at our lives and go, suffering? What suffering? It'll be so good there, it'll be hard to remember the bad here. That's the hope I have. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm reading Job, I'm just remembering this, and I keep thinking we all, like Romans chapter 8 says, that until then we wait for it with perseverance. We want to wait well while we're in the waiting room. We want to be faithful and we want to trust the Lord. All right, keep reading. We'll catch with you tomorrow in chapter number 8. Bye.